Greetings, fellow travelers. Matt from William Henry with another peek behind the curtain at the William Henry studio. Of course, narrated and recorded from my home office, but nonetheless, for this installment in this series, I wanted to talk about Mokume Gane, which is an extraordinary material that I have touched on before in the past, but not since we kind of restarted this William Henry Insider, and I thought it's such a spectacular story that it was worth revisiting for those of you who haven't heard about it. So, Mokume Gane is a forged tapestry of metal. Mokume Gane is originally comes from Japan, and it translates as wood-grained metal. Made with different non-ferrous alloys, as in alloys of metal that cannot be hardened or heat treated. But the history is that the early makers of the legendary samurai swords in Japan were forging differential alloys of ferrous metals, of steels that could be hardened, to make these extraordinary blades for the samurai swords. And as they developed that technique of getting different kinds of alloys to actually combine into a single unit, they expanded on that idea and started using the non-ferrous alloys like brass or copper or nickel silver or sort of other alloys to forge decorative elements to integrate into the handles of these samurai swords, so that that wood grain metal, that beautiful flowing pattern of these different alloys of metal not only would show up in the blade along with a Hamon heat treated line, what have you, but also in accents that would be, sometimes embedded in the handle and under the cord wrap, sometimes the actual guard of the handle. So that's the tradition of Mokume Gane. And for many, many, many years, maybe more than 100 years, it was really a lost art. No one was doing it. And then I'm not quite sure on this, but I want to say in the 50s and 60s in the United States, bladesmiths and people that were rediscovering the forging of metals started trying to figure out how to replicate that. And what has evolved in the last 50 years is this extraordinary range of decorative only forged metal that is largely called Mokume Gane, although there are lots of permutations. There are precious versions, there are non-precious versions. For William Henry, almost since the beginning, since we first started using Mokume, I just call it Mokume and drop the Gane, we've just worked with one guy, and his name is Mike Sackmar, and he makes this material for us, and his technique is extraordinary. Almost exclusively we're working with brass, copper, and nickel silver in traditional Mokume, and he is layering up a billet, starts this, I can't even show you, this big, of 89 separate layers of these three alloys of metal, welding the corners, making sure everything is absolutely clean, and then with great heat pressure forging, compressing that down. And as he goes, sometimes he's refolding it, recombining it, cutting it and cross-sectioning it and recombining it, all while it's red hot, to end up with these 89 layers that start this big, all the way down into an 1/8 inch thick of material with these super fine layers and this pattern coming through them. So it's a spectacular technique. Mike is an amazing artisan, and we have gone to him time and time again for his beautiful twist Mokume, which is actually taking that very finely layered billet of steel, grabbing it red hot in a vise, putting a T-handle on the other end, and literally twisting it like you would twist taffy. A little bit more complicated than taffy. And then a twist pattern emerges, or doing a patterning die on a very, very fine, again, sort of a fine finished sheet of Mokume, or almost finished sheet, that gives you an undulating raindrop pattern. So it's beautiful stuff. When it's polished, it's very muted. We spent a long time figuring out how to really get it to pop, because it's such extraordinary material that we really wanted it to jump off the page visually. So what we end up doing is doing a 1200 grit finish on every piece of Mokume, polishing it to a near mirror. But then, after the other components around the Mokume have been removed, we do a very soft French bead blast on that with a French ceramic that we found that leaves a very, very fine texture. Then hand polish that texture, and then use a special patina that reveals the colors. And that's what the patina doesn't attack the nickel silver, so that remains white. It does oxidize the brass, and so that gives you sort of that nice rich brass tone. But then the copper, we're able to get a really deep orange, almost into a red, and sometimes we get the brass to move into kind of a dark brown or even edged in black. So the contrast is extraordinary. How we get that contrast and sort of reveal what's possible in the material has been a long, slow learning curve, but we've been at it for a while. So that is the story of Mokume Gane, at least that we use here at William Henry. And check our stuff out online. You can actually search by Mokume or Mokume Gane on our website. So there you go. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.